Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Eve Gomez, also known as EVE, from the region. I was born here, actually, I felt like I was born here in Gary, Indiana. I was 7 years old when I came to this beautiful city of GI. How many of you are from Gary? All right, yes, yes. And now you're all adopted. You weren't from Gary, you are part of Gary tonight. And it gives me a great pleasure to be here and moderate this wonderful, much-needed conversation, a discussion that many of you may not be aware of, or maybe you are, and you may be a little confused about certain things, but hopefully in this discussion you'll be able to clear your thoughts, your doubts, or confusion about anything. And of course, I want to thank Indiana University Northwest for doing this. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Muchas gracias. So you know Spanish is my first language. ¿Quién habla español aquí? Órale. Y que viva México, y que viva Latinoamérica.
¡Viva Chile!
Y que viva Chile, Uruguay, Peru, and all those beautiful Latin American countries. We're here to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, and this is part of that kickoff. I know that they've been going at it since earlier in the month, and you know, you may have seen some things on the table, and some of you may wonder, if I may, some of you may wonder, well, what is Latino, Latina, Latinx, Hispanic, Chicano, and there's a new one, Latina. That's homework for all of you guys to do. Google these names to educate yourselves of what they mean. Some people are very adamant about what to call them. To me, just call me Eve and not late for dinner. I'm good. I am Mexican, born and raised in Gary, Indiana. But some people are very, very sticklers to what they want to be called. And we have to respect that, right? My name is Eve. Don't call me Eva. Just saying, right? So that is something that I'm going to leave you guys to do for homework. And I don't know if you may want to ask that question to our two beautiful, wonderful, powerful panelists here today. See, I'm taking that 4 minutes to talk about this, see. So today is the kickoff of one more event about a discussion that many of you may be wanting to have. I'm one of them. I'm a radio personality, but I do a lot of things, wear several hats, but being that I am here to represent a community, to me, I don't take that lightly. Everywhere I go, to my Latinos that are here, to my Hispanic families, I don't take that lightly. I'm here to represent a community that feels that they don't have a voice because they don't speak English. I'm an interpreter, professional interpreter. So I know the feeling, and I know the need, and I know the disparities, and I'm here to help make that happen, to fill those disparities, to take care of our people in the language that they understand. And I'm happy to see the diversity that I see here, right? Like I said, la diversidad vale mucho. Diversity is very valuable. And Gary's becoming more diverse than you know. We have a lot more Hispanic or Latino families coming to GI. In case you didn't know, check out Brunswick area. They're coming back. I appreciate that. So we're thankful to all of you that are joining us for this beautiful discussion on history and the very meanings of the terms Latino, Latina, Latinx, Hispanic, and Chicano during this Hispanic Heritage Month. And for those of you that like social media, put yourselves, tag, say you're here, check in, because people need to know that you're here. People need to know what's happening here at IUN together with IB Tech, and of course, my friend Louis Gonzalez, give him a round of applause as well. Thank you so much for being here. And so what a perfect marriage, IUN with IB Tech in this building, right? All right, so we're going to get right into it. First of all, we have State Representative Mr. Mike Andrade. And we have our wonderful IUN Chancellor, Ken Iwama. And I want to say thank you to the caterers as well. Did you guys enjoy their food?
Oh.
Yeah. I have yet to taste it. Muchas gracias, muchachos. Thank you so much. So we're going to get right into this conversation, and I hope that you guys are taking notes. We are going to open up later for Q&A, and I'll hand the mic to you guys. This first talking point, I want to ask the Chancellor, and of course, he's not new, but he's still new, I think. Right? A little bit.
That first year was kind of a push year.
That was middle of pandemic, I have to commend him. That takes bravery to take on a university, not just one school, but a university in the middle of pandemic. I'm sure that was challenging enough.
It was, but you know, if you look around the room, especially our colleagues from IUN Northwest who are here today, you know, my survival and my sanity and what's left of my mental health is because of the team.
Well, pat yourselves on the back. Yes, yes. Teamwork makes the dream work. So this question goes to you, Chancellor. What is a designated Hispanic serving institution?
Great question, and I'm going to give a short brief for now, but because I know we're going to get into a little bit more of the substance of what that means moving forward. By the way, you know, when I speak and I have a notepad, that means it's extremely important that I get the information right. So a lot of my speaking engagements, I'll just go without anything, but today I want to make sure that whatever I say is as accurate as I can. But you know, for the dry definition of Hispanic serving institution, it is a not-for-profit higher education institution that has made a critical metric in terms of its student cohort of Hispanic and Latino students, and that is 25% of the full-time equivalent students within an institution. When you hit that 25% mark, you are now eligible to apply for designation for HSI, and we joined. That happened in the first quarter of 2020, and joining about 470 HSI institutions across the country, and about 300 emerging. Those heading towards the designation of 25%. That's the dry response, but we're going to get into a little bit more about what it really means to be Hispanic serving.
Right, and following with that one, how long has IU Northwest been a Hispanic serving institute?
Well, you know, it's funny, early on 2020, and again, this is a lot of work for people who were here before I even came here, right? It doesn't magically happen. It is all the work of IU Northwest, its faculty, staff, and other fellow students who, you know, you don't have numbers like 25, 26, 27% of Hispanic and Latino students unless there's a culture that's accepting and students can identify with it. We're going to do more, but you know, that is the stage that was set for me. Just so you know, my previous institution, which was the City University of New York, College of Staten Island, just as I was leaving, around the exact same time, College of Staten Island became a Hispanic serving institution as well too. So I think it follows me wherever I go, and I'm glad to have that.
That's great. How many of you actually, and be honest about this, that in the last year you did not know that IUN was an HSI? Thank you for your honesty, and that's great. So now you know. Hey, so you learn something new every day. And I'm glad that it's here because it's right next door to the Latino community, not far, going east, west, north, and south. And I know we have another institution that's HSI, but I heard that this is the only campus that has the only HSI or the highest number.
Yeah,
right?
We have a high number, but right now, we're the only comprehensive public institution in the state of Indiana with that designation.
Wow, that deserves a round of applause. This question now, I'm going to move to our representative, Andrade. First of all, can you tell a little bit about who you are, Mr. Andrade, to the community here?
Thank you. First, I want to say gracias, hermana, for moderating this very important roundtable. And it's very important that we as a community come together to have these healthy discussions and understand who we are, understand who our neighbors are, and understanding the rich history that everyone has in their culture. Being able to understand who we are and our passion and our story will allow us to be able to extend grace to each other and be able to work with each other better when it comes to succeeding in our communities. Unity is very vital in all of our communities as success. It doesn't matter where you come from, where you live, what your zip code is. We all can collaborate and come together because at the end of the day, we're on this earth together. And if we all are able to work together, it would improve our communities, our families, our future of our children's quality of life. And success is there for us to be able to reach. A lot of times we hinder ourselves when we don't allow ourselves to be able to be open-minded and understand someone else's needs, to to be able to understand someone else's story. So thank you, first of all, thank you, Chancellor Iwama, for this great opportunity. My good friend, Chancellor Gonzalez, for being here, and of course, Amy Diaz, who put all of this together, and we got to give her a
the HSI Committee and the subcommittee, the Hispanic Heritage Month Committee. So thank you so much.
thank you to the committee. Everyone who is here today. We have such diverse, and diversity is very important.
Yes,
It's
it
not
is.
something that we should be ashamed of, have fear. It should be something that we should all should embrace.
Embrace, that's right.
Embrace. Briefly about me, I'm born and raised in Pilsen, first generation American. My parents came as immigrants to this country from the country of Mexico, and grew up very poor. I remember my dad would work up to 2 to 3 jobs, and at that time I didn't understand why. Why was my dad always gone working? You know, I would tell growing up, my mom was like, "Hey, where's dad? Trabajando, he's working." But now I understand why. You know, the struggles that the immigrant community faces when they come here. And this, you're talking about back in the 1970s, 1980s, and mentioned that we still see those struggles today. And it's not only the immigrant community. You see it in the black and brown community. You see it in other communities. The struggles that we face. And it's a process that he was trying to save money so that him and my mom could be able to have money to pay the attorneys to be able to get their legal status here. So it wasn't that he was gone away just to try to make money, it's that they were working really hard to follow the law here and be able to have the American dream not only for themselves but for us. I remember growing up, starting to work at the age of 11, passing pizza flyers and some in Chicago Tribune newspapers because we needed money. And so we were all put in a little bit of our part. So me and my brother would go out there and pass a pizza flyers, get $1 and a slice of pizza. For passing, I don't know how many hundreds and dozens of flyers a week, and we thought it was good. We were getting a slice of pizza every day and $1. So I was able to start at a young age. And I always tell this to everybody: never regret where you come from. Never regret your story. Never regret the obstacles and challenges that you have faced in your past, because what it does is allows you to be who you are today. And I wouldn't change my story. I wouldn't change my past of how we became immigrants, and there was times we didn't have a meal on our plate, and I could remember someone knocking at the door, and it was a outreach church group coming and giving us food, because they had heard that there was this immigrant family up there that needed some food. So I started working at a very young age, and that's the work ethic that has been bestowed upon me. I say now, I still work hard, but I work smart. You know, my parents didn't know any better, so they worked hard, and they didn't have the ability to work smart, but I have the ability now to work smart, and that's something that I'm bestowing on my son, so that he could be able to have now what we call generational wealth, that a lot of times other immigrants' families don't have that. And so that's what's very important for us to come together and support our immigrant communities, support Hispanic communities, since we're talking about Hispanic Heritage Month, because we don't understand sometimes the struggles, especially sometimes from families from South Central America, because they have a longer process and journey to be able to be here. Forward my life, I moved into the region in 2000, got married to my wife Jackie, going on 23 years of marriage. I bought a house in Hessville, small little house. I had saved enough money, and we invested. And I started investing in passive income, or passive real estate, to get passive income, while working in management in corporate America. So for the last 7 years, now I've been self-employed as a business owner. I own a real estate investment company, I own a remodeling company, and other type of assets or businesses that have allowed me to be where I'm at today, to be the state representative. 2 years ago, the opportunity came for me to run for state rep. It was an open seat. My predecessor was running for a different position in office, and also Hispanic, and I feel that it was important for us to continue that representation downstate. In the House of Representatives, I am one of 2 Hispanic legislators in the House of Representatives. With the new census, I think we're at 8.9 million people here in our state. So it's an honor to serve in the House of Representatives as one of 2 Hispanic legislators. In the General Assembly, we have now 3. State Senator Ronnie Poe from the Porter County area. He got caucused in to replace Senator Karen Taylor, but he hasn't fully served his full term yet. He's up for re-election just like we are on November 8th. But it is very important to understand that representation matters, so I ran for office. Never had run before. People said, why did you run? I ran because I truly believe that we need more public servants. We need people that care for the community. Representation matters, and I feel that we need more of us out there to be able to advocate, to be the voice for the voiceless.
Yes.
And that opportunity was given to me. We worked really hard. We were able to win with over 5,003 votes. My first time around with no political experience, if you want to put it that way. But I've always believed that whatever you do in life, do it with all your mind, do it with all your heart, do it with all your soul, and you will be successful. The environment that we're in, we could always work on that. And we could come in and bring our work ethic and bring our partnerships and relationships and the vision that we have, kind of like what Amy had this vision, you can see it now to fruition today. A lot of times we just have to be patient. Being patient and understanding the timing in our life, and the doors will open at the right time for us. And it's an honor to serve everyone. But that's briefly of who I am
And in
and
knowing
what
that,
I'm doing.
thank you for representing us downstate. We need more Latino Hispanic representation downstate. We really do. But I'm going to hold our representatives accountable to bring up other new politicians from our younger generations coming out of universities, to mold them, to hand the baton over to them, and not to say, I'm going to stick around 30, 40 years and continue to serve office. Let's mold some new leaders, yes? Yes? Yes. And in knowing this, that you just mentioned, the question is, are you aware of any statewide policies, guidance that impact Latinos, Hispanics?
Yes, so there's a lot of things that impact us right now, and I'm working on 2 specific ones. You guys, if anyone reads the newspaper, you probably saw an article recently about the driver's card. That is something that I've been very passionate about since I got into office. I've been working with other colleagues in the General Assembly. Unfortunately, because down there in the General Assembly is a super majority of Republicans, it has been difficult to try to get anything done because of policy differences. But partnerships and relationships are very vital like anything else. So I have been collaborating and working with legislators on the other side of the aisle who have found interest in this particular initiative because they also represent Hispanic communities in their areas. I'll give you an example. Senator Blake Dorio, who represents the Elkhart County area. Goshen is in that county, and Goshen is a very high Hispanic population. So he started to notice that his district was changing, and his district now is 28%, if I'm not mistaken, 20% Hispanic. So he has taken the initiative for us to work on this driver cards, and he has authored a bill on the Senate side. We had a hearing, and the House Republican floor leader, Mike Kerkhoff, came and testified in Roads and Transportation on this driver card summer study that we were doing, committee, in favor of it. He was the first person that came and testified. So this is huge for us because you have a leader on the Republican caucus that was saying this is something that is needed in our communities. So we have bipartisan support on the House side and on the Senate side, and we are hopeful that this bill will be getting a hearing next session and that we will be able to get finally something done for our Hispanic communities. Now let me say this, a lot of people mistake this particular initiative that we're trying to do with immigration. It has nothing to do with what's going on the federal level. We cannot control in our state what happens on a federal level and the process that takes sometimes decades for somebody to be able to get their residency card. But what we can do as a state is understand that we have a need in our communities, and I'm not saying just in the Hispanic community, but our immigrant communities are here and they're contributing to our economy, they're working, they have their families and their kids in school, and they're part of our environment of contributing to our Hoosier state. So let's give them an opportunity to be able to drive to work, to drive their kids to school without the fear, to be able to be part of the community while their process is being dealt on a federal level. was this particular initiative is going to help in public safety. It's going to improve our public safety for all of us, including law enforcement who actually came and testified in favor of this. Is going to continue to help our economy with right now with the shortage of workforce that we have with employees. People will be able to have a job without having to be able to go to work without having to be fear of getting pulled over or getting arrested. And it's also going to help with their courses. I can't tell you how many judges came to me afterwards through a phone call, through a text, and said, Mike, this is much needed, because right now our courts are saturated with cases of people that are getting pulled over, waiting for the process, or their cars get towed, and we have the towing companies have a parking lot full of cars. The insurance companies are for us because of the accidents. You're going to have hit and runs. It's going to help with their insurance to drop premium, and it's going to help all of us. So I keep on and on, but this is a benefit that will help from a public safety, from an economic development standpoint, and also it's going to help our communities, and it's going to be able to expand what we've been trying to do almost for a decade, because this actually in 2008 was put out there and it got turned down. So I'm very excited about this. That's going to help our immigrant community, but specifically our Hispanic communities.
And I applaud that. That's something that I've been questioning year after year after year, because on the legal side, I can add that I've been a witness to what happens when you get pulled over or attempted to be pulled over and you don't have that license because you're undocumented. Now they have extra charges against them because they fled in fear of being deported when they have children and a wife at home waiting. Having this license to say, I can drive legally, I can get pulled over because I missed a stop sign. How many of us miss a stop sign? Come on, let's all be real. How many pass a red light?
That's a red light.
Let's all be real. But my undocumented families are in fear when they're out there on the road trying to get to work. So,
and even let me clarify something,
yes.
I'm interrupting, because this is very vital, because I was getting emails from constituents bashing me and attacking me because I was pushing this, and I can tell you how, unfortunately, sometimes people think about the immigrant community, which makes me sick, to be honest with you, because we're all humans. But as I was going through some of these emails from constituents upset about this, that I'm pushing this initiative, we're calling it a driver's card, not a driver's license, because we understand that a driver's license can be used as identification when they go vote. And that's something that some of the extreme people don't want this to happen, because they're concerned about, oh, you're going to have, and I'm not here to offend anyone, just the word that they use, so let me disclose that. Illegals, right? So you're going to have an illegal vote. And so what I have responded to these individuals saying, look, this driver card to allow them to drive,
right.
Not a license, not a driver's license. So it's all about that language and how you word something, that they're not going to be able to vote, they're not going to be able to get federal funding and other stuff. This is specifically to allow them to commute and be able to drive, keeps our community safe and be able to help their families.
Wonderful, and that's so needed, so we do need to keep going, and that will create more revenue. It's only making sense to do that, right? Because now they can buy the plates in Indiana, not in Illinois. Now that they can get their car insurance in Indiana and not in Illinois, I can go on and on. So thank you for that, and so we need all the support to come downstate with you. Next question will go for our Chancellor Iwama. What benefits do institutions receive when they achieve the HSI designation?
So I'm going to tackle this following representatives' remarks first on a macro basis, right? And so what are we here for, right? What are, especially the regional institutions of Indiana University, we're here to help students self-actualize, self-realize, to be successful, and to remove obstacles and help them remove their own obstacles as they move forward. And so, you talk about benefits to an institution, it just drives, diversity in itself drives our mission. It's a critical part of our mission. But beyond that, the other aspect of intrinsic nature of diversity, which our HSI designation helps drive as well too, is that, when I talk around Northwest Indiana and I talk about how critical it is for students, high school students, to go to college, and we're seeing a decline in that, right? We're seeing a decline in the yield of high school students since 2016. It's been a dramatic decline across the state. And what that worries me is because let's start from a workplace perspective. Our workplace has become so much more complex. Our world has become more complex. So in addition to, the human nature and the humanity nature of it, just to prepare students for the workplace, it's a crime if you do not educate them in a diverse environment, right? Because so many conflicts you see every day in the newspaper. You just pick up a newspaper and you'll see people misstepping, doing things in terms of their relationship to the others that give the type of notoriety that you do not want to have, right? And so, working and actually, dealing with good conflict, right? Civil conflict within the context of a university where we exchange ideas and we're not punished for it. You need a diverse student body, you need diverse faculty, you need diverse staff to have that energy flow. So, beyond that macro value of HSI organization and diversity overall, for us, it also gives us an entree, in terms of being able to apply for additional funding, right? And so once you get an HSI designation, one of the great benefits is that you can apply for United States Department of Education funding. And there are 3 programs that IU Northwest is now eligible to apply for, and we have to some great success, actually. We can talk about that later. But one is the developing, and these are under Title V and Title III programs. One is developing Hispanic Serving Institutions, the HSI program. Another one is the Hispanic Serving Institutions, Science, Technology, Engineering, or Mathematics and Articulation, HS STEM, grant ability under Title III. And then finally, promoting post-baccalaureate opportunities for Hispanic Americans. So those are the 3 areas that we now and have successfully done, and again, hopefully we'll be able to talk about that a little bit, about funding. And what does funding mean? It's funding to support our students, it's funding to support our Hispanic and Latino students, but it also has that great ability to service all students as well, too. So this puts us in another, I have to tell you, when we got this designation, sometimes it's hard to get, a notice from IU Bloomington, right, and IUPUI, because they're the crown jewels of IU, and they tend to occupy our space. When we actually got one of the major STEM grants, and a lot of people here are looking at, they're responsible for getting that for IU Northwest. The President Witten featured it in whatever blog. It was I got so many emails from people that normally would not contact me across IU. So we are sticking out, and we are, putting our foot in the ground and saying, this is our presence here. We're the most diverse campus in the state of Indiana. We're the most diverse campus in Indiana University. Stand up and take notice, and they're taking notice.
Stand up, that's right. So with that, I'm sure it took a lot of preparing, and that's my next question. What did IUN or IU do to prepare as it moved towards applying for the HSI designation?
So, there's processes and steps before getting the full designation. And again, once you're designated as an emerging Hispanic serving institution, that's the kind of the rallying cry that you need to prepare for this designation. So I think back in 2018, a lot of my colleagues here at IU Northwest, before I even got here, started putting that in place, right? What does it mean to be, define what it means to be a Hispanic serving institution here at IU Northwest? And so, they established a committee. First, IU Northwest established an HSI, the first iteration of the HSI committee, across campus to answer these questions and define, what do we want to be? Because, you mentioned Goshen, right? It's another HSI serving institution, but a private institution, right? So there's another one in Indiana, but it's private. But in speaking to them and early on, because I knew that they're heading for this designation as well too, they're different from us a little bit, IU Northwest. And so the way they organically identify themselves as a Hispanic serving institution is unique to them, unique to their student needs, unique to their community. And so for us, I think we took the same tack. We can't, there's not a cookie cutter about what Hispanic serving means. It is what ideally, what is the needs of the community and the needs of the student, and that is different as each student that walks through our door as we move forward. So in addition to establishing that committee, we started thinking about bilingual in terms of, in terms of our websites, in terms of, representation of our staff members, at the front entrance in our missions, diversifying our staff and our faculty as we move forward as well too. Because again, it's about the environment that makes students feel welcome. But I just want to say this as well too. One thing that was fantastic in coming to IU Northwest, and we talk about student success, right? Student success, but at IU Northwest, when I walked in the door and I learned about the student success efforts that are already being put in place, right? The foundation was already there for us to be a great HSI institution. Our focus on persistence and completion, we have some of the best rates across IU in terms of our persistence for our students. That doesn't happen by accident. That is because you have faculty and staff that believe in the success of our students. And that is one of the unique things. I'm sorry to say that's unique in some ways, right? I wish every institution across the United States had faculty and staff that believed as much as students that we have here. But that is why I'm proud to wear the IU flag, the IU Northwest pin, everywhere I go, because this is who we are. This is the characteristic of everyone who works here. And that's why it is also fitting that we're the first HSI designation as well.
The answers can be long, and I won't say long-winded, but it's information that needs to be heard. When someone invites me to be the timekeeper, I've been doing that. So, and I know that the majority of the questions are actually for the Chancellor, and this is on purpose and intentional. But I will be honest, I said, what does the state representative have anything to do with the institution? Well, based on the questions, you'll know why, in case you thought that as well. Because this question is now for you, State Representative Andrade. Are you aware of any resources that are available from the state of Indiana to support institutions with the HSI designation and or increase the number of HSIs within the state?
Actually, I do, and I can prepare for that. Thank you to someone who sent me an email. Read your emails, folks. Indiana Commission Higher Education, our state has that. Back in December of 2019, and this is actually public record, so I'm going to look at this. There was a new initiative that helps Indiana Hispanics and Latino learners to obtain education and training beyond high school. So the Indiana Commission for Higher Education announced in 2019 this particular initiative that is funded by Indiana's Gaining Early Awareness and Readiness for Undergraduate Programs, which is considered Gear Up. They call it Five Padres Estrellas, translated as Star Parents. And what Star Parents do is they work with the community organizations to focus on empowering our Hoosier, Hispanic, and Latino communities to be able to get provided for college and career support. So one of the things that I see this often, and this happened, and I could speak this as someone who went through this process myself, once again, talking about my story, about my parents who came immigrants to this country. They actually met here, so they didn't come married, they met here. But there wasn't a push for us to go to school. There was a push of family values. There was a push of work hard, to live the American dream, to stay out of poverty, be good to your neighbor, very family-oriented, very faith-based oriented. But there wasn't really a push about going to education. You have to understand why. You have to look at the roots, and you have to look, once again, at our story, who we are, where we come from. My great-great-grandpa didn't go to school, even in Mexico. He was a farmer. My grandparents, on both sides, they only went to, I think, first or second grade, and then their parents pulled them out to help them out of the farm. My dad didn't have the same ability. He went to school into sixth grade. And so there's not that initiative, there's not that mindset of, well, you need to go to school. There is, you do have to work, and you have to do this, provide for your family, and this and that. But when it comes to the focal point of being education, it's not there. So it's something that we have to create with organizations like this, and what our state has done to allow what they call Padres Estrellas to connect with schools and neighborhoods to partner up to tackle students through the 21st Century Scholar Program. They started with the Next Level Jobs Workforce Readiness Program. There's a better opportunity for you besides just working. You could get educated. There is a future for you. Wait a minute, there is IUN, who is an Hispanic Servant Institute. And there's others here in our region who now have the same thing. So creating that pipeline of being able to motivate and support and mentor students when they're in high school. That's why I love what the partnership that IUN has with IB Tech and the dual credit courses that now they offer at the schools, at the high schools, so that those kids are getting ready. So when they go to college, they already have a feel of what college is going to be. And instead of having that fear of, well, I don't know if I'm going to succeed because my mom and dad didn't even go to school. They didn't even go to college. They didn't have that opportunity. And so I'm just going to go work at the steel mill. I'm just going to work and be a grunt worker guy. No, you can have a better career. You can go through the education process. And representation matters. We're talking about that, Chancellor. When the students come in, being able to see an Amy Diaz greet them that looks like them, that understands them, that the parents who come in don't speak English a lot of the time, so there's that fear. I've been told many times by students who, my mom and dad cannot even help me fill out the application enrollment. So they get discouraged at home because the parents don't even know how to fill out education enrollment. Half of them don't have that education to be able to fill that out. So the students feel shy, fear. I can't fill this. So having the universities to say, hey, we are a Hispanic Servant Institute, we could help you is vital. Because now we're helping them out where they're not able to get that assistance at home. And when the mom and dad comes to school, to the university, they see someone that looks like them and can talk to them in their own language, they have the comfort. And when they have the comfort, then they feel they're at home, you're kind of like family, you make them that they belong here. And that's how we can be able to change the future of tomorrow. But this is a program that was started and it's out there. And they form a committee by different Hispanic stakeholders. We have one from Indianapolis, one from South Bend, Fort Wayne, Columbus, actually Indiana. But we do have these programs. They actually work with La Casa de Amistad, which is very, very well known. You know about that even in South Bend because you travel there. El Mexicano in Fort Wayne, Indiana Commission Hispanic Latino Affairs with Isla, which I'm part of the commissioner of that organization created by the governor to help the Hispanic community. The Latino Education Group, Ola in Evansville, where they're able to help out to be able to push, to promote, to motivate, to mentor our students to be able to go for higher education. So we do have that in our state.
And I'm glad that they're there, so I would encourage all of you to hold them accountable, to bring them up here to Northwest Indiana. I have that voice, I have a big mouth, so I always ask, where's HLOT? Where's this organization? Where's IUN? Where's, they need to come up here because what I'm seeing here is the melting pot. This is what America looks like, or at least it should in every city, to be so diverse. And I'm glad to hear that. Yes.
Real quick, sorry to interrupt you once again. Talking about that, and Chancellor Gonzalez was able to join me for that meeting. I think it was a month and a half ago at Wicker Park at the Social Center. Indiana Latino Institute partnered up with different universities. I think PNW is there. I think you have someone there from IUN, IB Tech, so Academy College, to talk about what can we do collectively together to promote, to be able to help our Hispanic students moving forward. So those conversations started to begin again. We are starting to have stakeholders meet again here in the region. And I know Chancellor Gonzalez and I were able to participate and be part of that along with Representative Harris so that we can continue to, like you said, representation matters here, not just in Indianapolis.
That's right. And hold them accountable, please. I will. Just like as we hold ourselves accountable, we want others to hold us accountable. We do need to hold everyone accountable, but we got to keep moving. I know that your answer is a little bit long, but because of time, I want to make sure that I ask these questions. Right, Amy? I also have to keep myself on the ball here. So, Chancellor Iwama, what is the distinction between enrolling and serving?
You know, I read an article today, and enrolling versus serving, they put it in the context of dwelling versus serving. Is this just a dwelling, or are you actually serving students, right? And so, you know, when we talk about enrolling, it's probably that basic dry definition that I gave you of Hispanic serving institutions when we first started. Serving is something completely different. And we talked about it earlier about organically what does serving mean to us. You know, it was funny when you mentioned the ILI, Indiana Latino Institute. I was fortunate to serve on a panel last year with the Goshen president and some others that were emerging or achieved HSI status. And part of that, I was curious. I was part of the panel because we were developing, right? We were organically developing what we wanted to be. But I was really interested in hearing from my colleagues who've gone through this process and may have, made more years of experience. And what I found out is that they're in the process of evolving as well too, because our students evolve every day. Every generation of students evolves, so we have to evolve as well too. But when we describe what service means beyond the 25% enrollment number, I'd like to refer to the Seal of Excellencia framework that's by this group called Excellencia in Education. And what it is, there's this certification, it's almost like higher education. We're very much into accreditation. It's almost like accreditation for me and HSI. And two big buckets is looking at your data and your practices in 6 areas. Right? And I think it's important to read them off to you. Enrollment of Latino students, retention of Latino students, transfer in and out of Latino students, financial support for Latino students, representation of Latinos in administration, faculty, and staff to further model success, and degree completion of Latino students. So those are the 6 main areas of data and implementation that if we were to get this seal, this is what we would have to actually evidence, right? Evidence that we were doing this. But the third piece, the main piece beyond data and implementation practice is leadership as well too. And making sure that it's embedded, our mission in serving Hispanic and Latino students it's embedded in our mission and strategy, data and practice, human resources, communication, and institutional culture. So these seals are not just given to anyone of excellence. They are earned, they're not deserved. And so, I think our HSI community here at Indiana University Northwest is very interested in, in pursuing this seal. So this will guide our practice, but it's also a good guide based upon what I've read for all of our students as well too. So not only will it give us practices for Hispanic and Latino students, but it will give us practice for the whole dimensions of diversity that we have at IU Northwest.
Wonderful. And this next question, we all know that STEM is so important. So tell us more about the STEM grant that IUN received and how you plan to use the funds from the Triunfos STEM grant or Triumphs STEM grant.
Well, I almost feel bad that I'm actually the one reading this because, again, so many people here from IU Northwest are responsible, and you don't know how much work goes into it. Unless I don't want to actually assume that. Those many here are involved in the grant-making process. It is such a laborious process, and there's no guarantee on the other end, right? And so you have to have blood, sweat, and tears, believe in what you're doing, and prepare it if you don't get the grant to come back again and again and again. And I see a lot of people shaking their heads. So the fact that so early on in our process, in our designation, that we were able to get a $5 million grant from the United States Department of Education, please applaud that. It's again from the Hispanic Serving, what I told you, the Science and Technology, Engineering, STEM portion of Title V. It's helping us for curriculum redesign, faculty development, including research experiences for students in the first year of college, right? And Louis Gonzalez and Ivy Tech is part of this, curriculum alignment as well too for students who are transferring in to IU Northwest. You can clap for that. Again, isn't that a beautiful thing? Not only do we share the same space, but we're collaborating on things to help all of our students, so I'm really happy about that. Wraparound academic and student support services for STEM, including student employment opportunities, and coaching and academic advising. New enhanced high school community and employer partnerships, which are critical, right? Always have to bring the community, and it really does take everyone to make a successful student. And infrastructure enhancement, including the creation of a new STEM resource center, which we're starting to build already. We're already in the process of doing that as well too. So, that money the funds are being put to great use for our students, and I won't even mention, because I was told that it's bad form and to even mention other grants that we were applying for, but this will be it. There is a pipeline, and I can really come in their hairs because I don't want to jinx us and things like that, but this is the momentum and the purpose that we have moving forward, and our designation is giving us funding, but not just to IU Northwest, giving funding to give back to the students, which is the most important.
Wonderful. What are the current demographics of the campus?
Yeah, the current, 51, first of all, it's like, I'm wary of some of the, the rankings in higher education, right? Traditionally, they favor institutions that are not as interested in social economic mobility and diversity of their students, right? And so, and historically, and they've written about this, I think a lot of those are privileged universities and universities that really don't speak to what we're supposed to be doing here as higher education institutions. But I have to point out one in this U.S. News and World Report, and we're constantly on the top list for this, but I think we're number 9, and somebody correct me, number 9 in the Midwest for campus diversity, and 59 in the nation. And really helping to leading the way is the increase in Hispanic and Latino enrollment right now at approximately about 27%. Right? And so, but we're diverse in all ways. We have about 72% African American Black students as well too. As we move forward, I think, what are we known for? What is every university known for? And I think what we will always be known for, in the way our demographics are moving, is supporting the diversity of all our students. And frankly, if that's the niche that we develop in helping our communities and helping our students and helping our families, what an honorable distinction to have as we move forward.
Having this designation, what are we doing with it?
Yeah, that's,
That's a good question,
the
right?
poor HSI committee and everyone here at IU Northwest, tonight is one of the examples of what we're doing with it, right? And, the key for me, and the key for all of us, I think, is, I always say, yell from the mountaintops, maybe yell from the highest sand dune, right? That we are HSI, and then we're defining what that HSI, that service means. We have representatives from the new superintendent from East Chicago here, and we have representatives from all around Northwest Indiana. And we need to let families, we need to let students, we need to let our representatives, we need to let everybody know what we stand for. And when you apply and you are admitted and you enrolled at IU Northwest, again, it's just not a number, right? It is the groups of cohort students that we're trying to develop, right, to create better, even more environments. As a commuter school, it's an issue with all of our students. How do they feel belonging here when they're coming to campus and they're leaving campus? It's those affinity groups as we move forward. And so, we started an affinity group in the School of Business and Economics. We have sororities and fraternities. We have groups within our minority studies group. We have, we're developing and supporting on a larger scale those things are needed to create more of a feeling of belonging for our students as we go. So we're going to earn this designation. I think we already have, but as every day goes by, and what are we doing with that designation? We're earning it every day, and we need your help, everyone here. In fact, I feel a little bit. I like to sit back and listen to Representative Andrade and listen to everyone here, because I don't like to listen to myself talk, and everybody here has better stories and better contributions that you can have for our students than frankly I do. I really believe that. So, it's going to take all of us working together and just spreading the knowledge of what IU Northwest stands for and what it provides and what it offers to students moving forward. That's our future.
Well, it was designated to ask him most of the questions, so you'll get to hear mostly what he has to say today. One more question for you, Chancellor, then we'll go back to Representative Andrade. What student groups are in place to support Hispanic, Latino students?
Yeah, I actually have that right here. Well, first of all, we have two fraternities and sororities on campus: Pi Lambda Chi sorority, Delta Pi Rho fraternity. I don't know if those who are familiar with those, they're on our campus. For the minority studies, we have this group called Iwama for Students, which is another affinity group. The Brother to Brother program, very deep in terms of the support of African American Black students, but also Hispanic and Latino students. And again, as I mentioned before, the School of Business and Economics, this newly generated Latinx affinity group that's happening as well too. So, this is probably just the beginning, and in terms of growing these groups, but also developing new ones as we move forward. So again, creating that community through small cohorts. Everybody who's been in higher education understands that these cohort groups are so powerful in keeping you coming back and on target, because when you have your colleagues, and your fellow students, going into the second year, you want to be in their second year with them, right? When they go into the junior, you want to be in their junior. When they're walking across the stage, I get the honor of giving students the diploma. They want to join their college students in that as well too. So that is one of the most powerful things that we can offer here at IUN, and we're going to advance that moving forward as well.
Wonderful. And now this question is for you, State Representative Andrade. What do you think the role of an HSI institution is to the Indiana community?
I've been waiting for that question. First, let me start by saying that Chancellor Iwama said it very well. We have to work together. Collaboration is important, partnership is important. Where we're seeing it today, you mentioned the new superintendent from Chicago. I see my good friend Scott Miller back there from the South Campus.
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, 48% of the students that attend Hammond High or Hammond Central High School are Hispanic.
That's for the whole district. It's actually close to 60%.
Wow. 60%. So we are in this, I call, gold mine of what we call the region. And I sit on the Commerce, Small Business, and Economic Development Committee at the State House. And as a small business owner myself, we have something that is vital, that people from the West Coast and East Coast are one. And that is we have Lake Michigan, beautiful Lake Michigan. We have access to the highways, 894, I-65, 25 minutes, or depending on how fast you drive, and how close you want to get to the city of Chicago, right?
If I get some light right there.
And so we have, air, water, roads, transportation. We have amazing universities like IUN here and other ones in our region. And we are growing leaps and bounds. And the Hispanic community, if you look at the numbers, we grew by 28% just in Lake County with this new census. That is the people that filled out the census. And let me emphasize this since we're talking about this. Census is very important. It's vital that we talk to our neighbors, our relatives, our families, our communities about filling out the census, because that's how we're able to have data when it comes from the government, federal and state level, to be able to understand funding, to understand what are the needs for our communities. Filling out a census is not just filling out another form. It's literally very vital for our communities to have representation on a local, state, and federal level. But with that said, our Hispanic community is growing leaps and bounds. And so going back to your question, what is my expectation? My expectation is to see our Hispanic students that are graduating from Hammond High or East Chicago or where I'm from in Munster, and be able to have a pipeline of going to furthering education, whether it's to do credit courses from Architect in high school and being prepared to go to a vocational job, or being able to further education, and also understanding, once again, I go back to our roots. If you look at the Hispanic community, the person that came in here was hired to be a painter. He's not a painter anymore. Now he owns the painting company. The person that was the cook at a restaurant, they came in and was washing dishes and was a cook. Now he owns the Mexican restaurant. The individual who came in and cutting grass, now he owns the landscaping company. So we have a lot of Hispanic community students who want to further themselves, and they see their parents being an entrepreneur. If you look at the Hispanic communities in East Chicago and Hammond, and Lake Station, and other areas here, Maryville and Highland, a lot of them are self-employed. They're entrepreneurs. They own either remodeling companies, they own restaurants, And so, they own their cleaning companies. So for us, as a serving institution, to understand who they are, who their family is, where their roots is, to be able to create these programs to allow them to further themselves. And a lot of it has to do with business. So creating this hub of excelling them in business management or entrepreneurship, allowing them to be able, because one day they're going to take over their family's business. So that's one of my expectations, collaboration. 2, be able to understand our Hispanic communities and their needs so that you can serve them better once the students come in here. And 3, representation. Representation matters. Seeing someone, I go back to like Amy, being in here in the administration, and they could come in and their parents could talk to someone in their language and feel comfortable, and the students could feel that they're valued and they're coming in somewhere that is home to them. And they're not going to drop out in a year or 2 years because they're having a difficult time. They don't have no one they could go talk to and express what they're feeling about. Maybe they need to change their class. Maybe they wanted to start somewhere, but now they want to change their career. It's vital for them to have a success, having that hub of support that we need to make sure their Hispanic communities are having through an Hispanic serving institution.
You guys,
Yes, go ahead.
one thing, and Scott, good to see you. My friend who, I just want to tell you a story how I learned about the growing diversity in Hammond and with their school system. I attended a board meeting, Scott and Mark Sperling's invitation, our Dean of School of Education, and it was part of our certification program that we're doing collaborative with Hammond in terms of certification of teachers. Because, we have teacher shortages across Northwest Indiana, across the state, across the nation. But when I was sitting there, and Scott, I don't know if I ever told you this, prior to our being voted on, one of your either faculty or staff members got up and talked about Hispanic Heritage Month in your school. And I just sat there, and it was like about a 15-minute presentation. I go, this is amazing, the depth and the robustness of the activities and the attention. And so that was my first clue about the dynamics in your community and our community as well, too. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you for being here. I think K through 12 is the lifeblood of us as well, too, right? And if we don't have, we talk about partnerships with community college like IUN Tech. If we don't have those partnerships with K through 12, we have no future. And so that you'll see that as a priority from all of us here at IUN Northwest moving forward as well.
And all that sounds that we have our work cut out as a community. We really do. And I raised my kids in Hammond, so I'm familiar with the Hammond schools, and it's very diverse. The most highest percentage in Latino in that community, so I applaud the school system in East Chicago as well. We just have to come together. No one is better than anybody else. You agree? I'm no better than you, you're no better than me. We all take the same thing. And I can relate, and I'm glad that we see an Amy, I'm glad that we see a Louis, I'm glad that we see everyone here representing your community, your own culture, because I was that child that didn't have those parents that could come and talk to somebody. I did it all on my own. So when I go and speak to the youth, I encourage them to be self-seekers. I encourage them to be self-motivators because I have been that self-motivating child. I didn't have a parent to come and meet with you. I didn't have a parent to fill out anything for me. I didn't. My mother was a homemaker raising 8 kids. My dad was a steel worker working all 3 shifts. I sometimes wouldn't see him unless he was sleeping. I knew he was home. So I can relate to these stories. So I'm glad that we're able to see us in here. I'm glad that these parents can come to you because you have someone at your office, because you have someone on the phone that can talk their language, can look like them and speak like them. And I highly encourage every business entity, every not-for-profit, every clinic, every hospital, they gotta look like us and talk like us. And I don't mean just Spanish, I mean Asian, I mean other different languages, Polish, what have you, because it's so important. And as I've said before, community means come in unity. So we got to continue. And I know that I've gone over I have 2 more questions for Chancellor, if that's all right, Amy. And I'm going over my minutes. I mean, I'm not going over the minutes, they are.
That's
As
fine.
long as you guys are okay.
I've been speaking a lot. If you just want to open it up to the community here.
Is that okay?
Great, I think that's fine.
Okay, wonderful. I was about to say, it's 26 minutes after the hour here at WLTH Radio. I almost said it's 19 minutes after the hour because I'm timekeeping, right? So we're going to open up to you, beautiful audience, and for being attentive, for being patient, and hopefully taking note of what you're hearing from these two experts, because they are experts. One is an expert now for the state of Indiana representing our community, and the other is the educator, which is our Chancellor, Iwama. So you raise your hand and I'll come to you and give you the mic. We have actually the podium here with the mic, so you can come too, but it's okay. I can use the steps and I'll walk to you. Anyone has a question, I'll run to you. Now's the time.
Don't be shy.
Please, please, we want to hear what you need
I'm
from
sure you
us.
have a question in your head that you say, I need to ask, but I don't feel like asking. Need to ask. Ask. Alguien quiere preguntar, por favor? Sí, okay. The brave one comes first.
This is more for Chancellor Iwama. You made a mention that a lot of things happened prior to your arrival, and that the preparation for HSI committee, the previous iteration, started roughly 2018 when it was possible that this was going to happen. Can you give some examples of things that were put in place as goals from that maybe first iteration, from the first people who started working towards where we are now, and some examples of things that came to fruition or things that maybe didn't hit some of those goals, and things that we want to maybe now focus on since we have that designation?
First of all, I probably should defer this to those who are empowered to speak that were here in the 2018 time period. So mine's kind of legacy information in terms of that. But I don't think, whatever iteration we're talking about, and many of the former HSI committee members are now on this, I'm even going to say new HSIs, it's, things change and new leaders emerge and new people participate. But I don't think that process, I don't think we ever hit our goals, and I don't think we'll ever hit our goals, because it's constant striving. And so what we did in 2018, we're still trying to do today. But I think because now with the designation, the immediacy of what we need to do is right on our front doorstep, right? And so, the pitter patter in the back of all our necks in terms of, we need to have a town hall. We need to meet with the community. We need to expand and add robustness to our Hispanic Heritage Month. We need to look at with greater clarity and more of a microscope our staffing and our faculty and the supports that we give them and diversifying that support system for the affinity groups, the cohorts, all those types of things. I'm almost guaranteed we talked about them in 2018, but now when you have the designation and that and now you're proceeding to actually put these things in place because we have an obligation. When you have an HSI designation, there's certain expectations from students and parents as well too. So we have to fulfill them moving forward. But I know Mark Hoyer, when I think he actually did a white paper back in 2017, 18 about what the plans were. So I would, if you could raise your hand, I would corner him a little bit later and ask him if anything was a little different than we're doing today in terms of our designation.
Great question. Anyone else? All right. So Mr. I'm certainly loving this. I need to work out.
Phil Donahue in the old days.
I just want to publicly tell you both, I just love your heart for the disenfranchised and for those who may be forgotten in our system. And my question is along those lines. One of our subgroups of the Hispanic population in Hammond is our undocumented students. And I'd like to hear Chancellor from the organization perspective and Representative Andrade from the legislative perspective. What can we do to get more undocumented students into higher education?
Great question. Glad I didn't have to ask that. Thank you.
You threw that to Mike real quick.
So we have been working what is called in-state tuition reimbursement. There was actually a law that was passed, if I'm not mistaken, back in 04-06, that was actually removed. But going back to partnerships in the State House, we are having finally bipartisan support that we didn't have before. So Senator Dorio has been a big champion in helping our Hispanic communities, once again, because he has the biggest district, him as a state senator, with 28% of the So we did last year a bill of institutional reimbursement to allow the undocumented students to be able to get state tuition reimbursement going to university. We did get a hearing. Unfortunately, the bill did not come out of hearing. This year, I feel that we were able to get progress done because at least we got a hearing. At least the bill wasn't just put on hold. So at least we actually got a hearing. People came and testified. Actually, brought several people from Lake County down to testify. We had a bunch of people that testified. I mean, there were several hours of testimony, specifically from students saying this is why this is important, or someone who was finally able to get their own education and say, look, this is those struggles that I went to. So this is a bill that we're going to push again for next session. We got traction last session. We finally got bipartisan support, so I know we're moving. Unfortunately, sometimes in the General Assembly, I'm a go-getter. I like to get things done. And I have to learn a lot of patience and timing and working those relationships to get things done. It's different when you work in the process of how our government operates, unfortunately. And so we have to be patient, but we've had finally bipartisan support. We're going to be working that. I'm actually going to author that bill in the House, and then we're going to have senatorial on the Senate and see what we're able to get things done. But I'm very hopeful that this next session we're going to have more traction.
That's great. Anyone else?
Just real quick, in thinking about potentially, this type of question, in terms of DACA students today. I went back in the history a little bit, and during the years of 2018 to 2020, when the Supreme Court was reviewing DACA cases, IU maintained in-state tuition for students already enrolled, providing weekly updates to affected students through the DACA website and direct contact through diversity offices on campus. We currently have 8 DACA students on campus, and 3 identify as Latino and Hispanic, so it is a concern. I appreciate the question, and I think it's an evolving dynamic as represented.
And going real quick, there was something that happened in Illinois, and I actually have it here because it was sent to me. It's called the Acevedo Bill. And the Acevedo Bill was done in Illinois to help out students. This was actually in-state tuition, so the residents of the state of Illinois are assessing a state tuition reimbursement, allowing to be able to meet certain criteria. So this actually was passed in the state of Illinois, allowing them, as they're working to get either the residency card or the green card, and as long as they maintain, for instance, a certain point average in school, or they had worked towards getting a GED, there were certain criteria that they had to go through, but it allowed them to be able to get financial aid. And that's something that we're going to find. One of the things that's having success is finding out what other states have done to pass legislation, because then now we have a model that we could use for our state. I'll give an example real quick. Senate Bill 82, that was a co-sponsor with mental health. In 2021, we were one of 2 states in our whole country, one of 2 states that we hadn't passed that bill. In terms of the language of mental health, to allow counselors or therapists or social workers to be able to practice mental health. The state of Maryland and our state. So what we did is we used a model out of Georgia that recently passed our legislation, and we used the same language and implemented in our state, and we were able to get that bill passed. So it's something that we're going to be working on, seeing what we just, our neighbor state did, that we could put in our language so that we could be able to hopefully get more traction and get it passed and say, look, this was already done in a different state, they're having success on it, why can't we do it here? Because at the end of the day, it is allowing our next generation to have success by allowing them to have an avenue to get education, especially when it comes to tuition.
Got a question right over here.
Yes. As a school superintendent, I noticed that our high school offers dual credit courses and AP classes. And in preparing our students for college, is there advantage of offering one over the other for our high school students?
Repeat that question, I didn't hear this.
It's AP courses versus dual credit courses at the high school level. Which would be, in your opinion, the better of the two in preparing our students for college?
You know what, I'm gonna, put Vicki on the spot. Vicki is our, she's our Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, and works closely with us with all the student preparation, including dual credit.
But I have all the experts.
Yeah.
I'm going to give my opinion. And I think that both are great for our students coming in the high schools. They're both great opportunities. What happens with dual credit is if they get a C or better, they are, I have to look to my expert. Thank you, Cynthia. But if they get a C or better, they get the credit. But if, with the AP exams, which we don't control, we've committed to a certain score per AP exam. So there's a little less assurance that the students will get the credit. If they get the C, they're in, and they get the credit. I don't know if you disagree with me. Okay, you're allowed. So I would say dual credit is the way to go. If at all possible. AP is great. AP is another great way, but dual credit is just an easier pathway into college.
Just a quick follow-up, dual credit is rapidly becoming a priority for IU Northwest as well too, in terms of expansion of dual credit offerings. And IU is giving us a lot of support along that road. So, I think there may be some other institutions that have a bigger presence in terms of dual credit, but we see and feel and hear the need to increase our presence along those lines as well too, without conflicting with Ivy Tech or
Well,
Sorry, Louis. Anyone else? These are great questions. Anyone else? I was just writing stuff.
steps.
Yes, I can use it.
Hello, how are you doing in terms of first-year retention rates of Hispanics since you've received your designation, and what programs have you implemented to keep them, and help them advance past that first year?
So,
Great question. One of them was one of the questions I didn't get to ask, but thank you.
So I'll throw a couple of facts and figures at you. First of all, again, the foundation, IU Northwest, it is, we're very proud of our persistence numbers, and they come in different formats and usually not up to date, in terms of, it's always a little lags a little bit, but just show you an example generally, and then we'll get to specific, in 2019, 87.9% of full-time bachelor's degree-seeking students were retained to the second term. That's the highest. And that is incredible. And in addition, 70.2% retained to the second year. So that was the first year, I believe, pre-pandemic, just before the pandemic, where we hit that 70% into the second year as well, too. In terms of, and I think two-year retention for Hispanic and Latino students, 64.8%. And graduation rates, 2015 cohort, again, it always lags because, we talk about graduations are close to 40% as well, too. So, proud of those numbers, but, if you talk to our student success team, all the grants that we are receiving and we are seeking are designed to advance that even further as we move forward.
Thank you. Great question. Anyone else? Mr. Lutz, representing Gary.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I work in the 2020 census, and there's a large percentage of undocumented Hispanics. They gradually begin to come forward, but now with all the emphasis been on the immigrants, they're pulling back. So how can they get access to education without being picked up? In other words, if they come forward, give the information, they don't know whether they're going to be accepted or they're going to be targeted.
I don't know if there's a legislative response to that.
The legislative response is what we have been talking about is we are working on making sure that we create a pathway for them. So there's no fear of coming forward with the institutional reimbursement bill, with the driver cards bill. I'm finishing my first term in the General Assembly. I'm up for re-election for Recreation. I'm very hopeful that I've laid the groundwork for next session to be able to create more legislation pathways for allowing undocumented community to be able to have access to resources, especially education, without fear. We see what other states have done, like Illinois, where they have been able to work through those laws so they could be able to have be able to further educate themselves. So that's something that we have to push. I go back to what I said earlier, representation matters. I am one of 2 Hispanic legislators in the whole House of Representatives. And so it is difficult sometimes to be able to work across the aisle when your colleagues that you're working with don't understand the Hispanic community. And so I've been able to build relationships, work with them, work especially with the legislators whom I have in their districts, Hispanic communities, undocumented immigrants, and they could see what we're seeing in our region. And so finding common ground, finding that partnership so that we could be able to pass legislation is very vital. And I'm very actually excited to see what the future will hold because we're starting to get traction. And it's going to help our Hispanic community so they don't live in fear of coming forward and further their education.
Hey. You know, this is what I'm saying. We're in the life-changing business, not a life-destroying business, right? And so if it ever came to the point where we felt we had to target students, I think probably 90% of the people here would not be here by choice. Because that is antithetical to every reason why we came into higher education in the first place.
And not speaking for the legislative body, but speaking from a community member, I think it's very vital that we as a community embrace the immigrant community. They're part of us.
Yeah, we love our group, right?
So, sharing that with them and embracing them and allowing them to be part of us in society is very vital because then they don't have to worry about fear. They can come in forward and enjoy just like all of us, quality of life. Quality of life. And so it's very important that we as stakeholders come together, churches, not-for-profits, community members, community advocates like Eve, and all of us coming together, universities, to say, we're here to support you, we're here to work with you, and let's get this together, help you through this journey of life. I'm not going to get too much deep into this, but unless you've really seen it or heard the struggles that the undocumented community have to deal with to come over here. 3 months in a train. Half of the people in the train die because they have no water. They're using the bathroom in a container, in a train. And when they finally get to a certain destination, they're abused, they're raped, they're murdered because they're taking their money. They're taking advantage of it. And they go through all those struggles. And they're still strong enough to say, I want a better life for me and my family, and come here. What at least we could do for them is embrace them and say, welcome. We are a country that welcomes you because we've been a country of immigrants.
Say amen, right? Yes, amen to that. Yeah, embracing is warming.
I don't have a question, but I do want to add to a response, to your question. In the past, I worked in admissions, and we do come across undocumented students who walk through our doors, and we are a very welcoming institution. We actually meet with the students and assess their situation as far as how can we help them academically. We have met with undocumented Hispanic prospect students and also African undocumented students who come through our doors. Some of them even have college degrees in the native countries, or they have some college credits in the native countries. So we meet with them, we have welcoming doors and provide support. The staff, especially in admissions, because that's where the students first come, seeking for help or guidance, or trying to learn how they can further their education. The staff is trained where they're familiar with, the situations that undocumented students face and we have resources to, when we continue to educate ourselves to better help and serve the students. And many times it could be a plan, so maybe, affordability is an issue and a student may have to be a part-time student and not a full-time student. And we work with them to help them get there.
That's great. Our great staff
I have seen this young lady grow from one university to another, and it's great to see that she's still in the college world. Because she too represents our community. And the cultural awareness, we're aware now, yes?
Yes,
Cultural
indeed.
acceptance, we're accepting us, yes?
Yes, indeed.
Cultural differences, we're knowing them, but we're embracing them, yes? I think that's one of the things that you should be taking away from this wonderful town hall discussion that I think we need to continue to have more and more, not just down south, but up here too. Because there's a lot of us here, there's a saying, aquí estamos y de aquí no nos vamos. We're here and we ain't going nowhere, okay? And English is not a American country language. It was not designated as the language to be spoken. So I'm one of those brave and bold ones. Don't tell me I can't speak Spanish here.
Yeah.
Why don't you speak Spanish with me?
That's right.
Learn a second language. It's never too late to learn a second language. And Spanish happens to be the second biggest speaking language in this region. Am I correct? Educators, educate me a little bit if I don't know, right? Any other questions? No one else? Going once?
Well, I have a
Twice.
gift for both you and Representative Andrade, and I think it's right under here, right there, so I'm gonna go over here. So these are the great, our new Hispanic Serving Institution t-shirts that just came in hot off the press, so I'm gonna give one to Eve, and I'm gonna also give one to Thank you so much. Most of all, thank you everyone. It's a Wednesday night, right? It's Wednesday afternoon. It's a Wednesday night, and look how many people came out to participate in this great discussion. Thank you all for being here.